A pretext is a purpose or a motive alleged or an appearance assumed in order to cloak the real intention or state of affairs.
Initial access. OMI is trying to get into your network.
Listen, this is your manager, and I'm trying to send off an email. I got this document. Need you to confirm a few details. So go ahead and log in and tell me what you think. I need this now, so to make this convenient, here is the link. I'm a threat actor, fishing mark for email is urgent to distract you with it. So how fast you clicked it when you submitted the form with your password in it. You probably couldn't tell there was an actual difference in the URL. The domains look alike though, and to you it looks fine though. Well, mine had typos and make it look like yours. See, I was in the mood today to make your account a communal space, but then you activated your trap card, and I saw you had 2FA, but I just shrugged. I'ma shake it off. Got on kid gloves, I'ma take them off. Got your phone number, I'ma make a call. I'ma break this wall, it just makes me lol. I'm moving quick, I'm on a mission. Yeah, I heard your network is lit. I'm trying to get in. Yeah, I'm trying to get me a hit. When I go fishing. Yeah, you probably think it's legit. I got you clicking. Yeah. Hello. Hi. I'm calling you from the IT department. We have been under attack by some hackers, and we think that your account might be a target.
Oh no, how do I fix this?
No need to worry, I wrote up a ticket. You'll get a notification from your authenticator app, so please pass me them digits.
1 sec.
Okay.
Yeah. The code is 112345.
Thank you. You fell for the lie, so I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. Cutting it short like a crew cut. Probably think it won't happen to you, but it happened to Uber. They say you win some, you lose some. Boys got a smooth touch hacking you too, bruh. You know how I be creeping and I'm logging in your VP, and it probably looks anomalous. Some logs if you be keeping them, and probably unaware about the shares that have been peeping. And the reason I'll be seeking them, I'm looking for an easy win. You probably thought it was a magic trick, and you're mad you clicked. I'ma stack my chips and bet that a DA password is sitting in an admin script. I'm moving quick, I'm on a mission. Yeah, I heard your network is lit. I'm trying to get in. Yeah, I'm trying to get me a hit. When I go fishing. Yeah, you probably think it's legit. I got you clicking. I'm moving quick, I'm on a mission. Yeah, I heard your network is lit. I'm trying to get in. Yeah, I'm trying to get me a hit. When I go fishing. Yeah, you probably think it's legit. I got you clicking.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Generative AI in Azure. So we're glad to be with you today. And I have with me today my co-host. Hello, Kenny, how are you doing? Oh, I think the mic is maybe muted. For a minute, let me check. Okay, yeah, I think I just sent somebody to unmute. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hello.
Hello,
everybody.
yeah, how are you doing? Yeah, correct.
I'm good. How are you doing too?
Yeah, busy as always and everything. Yeah. So yeah, any new or latest thing that you've been looking at when it comes to AI security these days?
I've actually been looking at.
Oh, sorry, just AI.
the
Apologies, I
update.
said AI security. Just AI in general. Sorry, my mind
Yeah,
is security.
I think another ChatGPT just released an updated I think 5 points.
Yeah, a model. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
another model.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you had a chance to test that yet?
No, actually.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one. So like because I use like ChatGPT like every day and stuff. So yeah, it's a very interesting one. I think it's definitely way much more faster than before. I think there are some tasks when it comes to like some writing that it does seem to do better. It does do thinking better, but overall, I've not really seen a lot of that much of a difference. So, we'll see like how it goes. But yeah, just a little bit of like play around that. But apart from that, there's been like other like companies that have released new models. So There is DeepSeek. DeepSeek released DeepSeek version 3.2 just a few weeks ago. So which one? There is another one that's based out of France. 1 minute. So Microsoft have them in Azure. Mistral AI. So Mistral also released like a new version of their model. So yeah, there's a lot of like, of course, Google also released like a later version of their own model. So it's getting more interesting. Anyways, so today, what we're planning to do today, Kenny, is that we're going to just talk about some of the recent announcements from Microsoft. But before we do that, to the audience, if you're yet to join the Meetup group, I'll put the link in the chat window. So please do go on and join the Meetup group. So that way you get notified when we set up events in the future. So you get notified. So I'll put that in the chat window. So just go to the link and make sure that you're a member of the Meetup group. The other thing to say is at the beginning of the session, we usually play music, and the music is by OMI, who is a really, really brilliant cybersecurity specialist or cybersecurity expert. He used to work at Microsoft. He works at Bishop Fox now. So he's sort of like a nerdcore rapper. So he does like rap, but he also does like cybersecurity and everything. Have you ever thought about that, Kenny? That's very interesting, right? You combine multiple passions together. Like, oh, you like music, but also you're a cybersecurity person, so you just rap about cybersecurity. Or maybe like, oh, I like something else. I like baking and I like doing something else. I just combine that with whatever else that I'm interested in, and then you have something very interesting and unique.
Yeah, Ali. Maybe writing.
Writing, yeah, that's it. That's definitely
Yes.
a good one in terms of going. I like writing and I like this field, so I'll just combine both together. Actually, like to your point, there's actually a book that I'm a member of a book club, and there is a book that we're reading. The book is titled AI 2041. So that's the title of the book we're currently reading in the book club that I'm a member of. And AI 2041 is actually a fictional book. It's a fictional book about what the world looks like in the year 2041 with all these AI advancements. And again, it's like, it was co-authored by someone who is like an AI expert. So the guy used to lead AI at Google, and I think also at one of the tech giants in China. So he's led like a lot of like AI companies. So by co-authored with someone, it's a fictional book, but it's very interesting because it just takes you into the future and says, this is what the world looks like in different places in the world with all this AI technology and it's all fictional. Okay, so let's get started with this today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And for the audience, as we go through this, if you have any questions for Penny and I, please do put your question in the chat window and we'll be happy to address that. So you can see my screen now, I guess.
Yes,
So
I can.
what nice. So what happens is Microsoft, whenever they do one of these big conferences, whether it's Microsoft Build, whether it's Microsoft Ignite, they have this thing that they release, which is called the Book of News. The Book of News is where you find the announcements that they made at the conference. So for this year's Ignite, there is a Book of News. It's called the Microsoft Ignite Book of News. And I'll put the link in the chat window for the audience. So this link contains all the key announcements that they made at Microsoft Ignite this year. And I like the way that they also structure it. They structure it by different solution areas. So you can just pick like whichever area that you're interested in and just go straight to that area. So what we'll do is we'll go to Microsoft Foundry and we'll start with that. So what are some of the announcements that they did this year? So one of the first announcements that they did is, number one, the UI has completely changed, right? So the UI has completely changed. So this was the UI that we're used to before, Kenny. So they had like this UI, right? We're used to this UI. What Microsoft did was they created a new UI. So at the top of the screen, you can switch your experience to the new one. So you have this switch button here. I can switch to the new Foundry experience. And that takes me to the new Foundry UI, where I can experiment and test out new capabilities that they announced. One of the things that I like about this new UI, Kenny, is what what they've tried to do from an experience perspective. Oh, let's continue. Let's go. Wait. What Microsoft has tried to do from an experience perspective. Let's just remove all of this. Yeah, so what Microsoft has tried to do from an experience perspective is to have things a little bit more structured in terms of how this works. So for example, when you go to the new Foundry UI, you get to this page. But at the very top here, you find these different phases. You have discover, build, operate. And then after that, there's deploy. So essentially what this means is these are the different stages that you go through when building and working with your AI agents. So they've structured things accordingly. The first thing that we want to do is we want to discover what is available for us to build AI agents. So when I click on that discover, I have a place where I can see the models that are available. And right off the bat, here is one of the new announcements that they did. One of the new announcements that they did was Claude or Anthropic AI models are now available in AI Foundry. Are you familiar with Anthropic, Kenny?
Yes, but I came across it while I was going through some of the updates I saw online.
Yeah. So, so they sort of like, so the way that it sort of like operated was many of these team members came from the same organization. So they came from an organization called called DeepMind, which was aligned to Google, right? So and then DeepMind, essentially people went off. So some people left DeepMind, to OpenAI. Some people left DeepMind to Anthropic. But then it just so happens that the different cloud providers are aligned with the different teams. So Microsoft is aligned with OpenAI, right? So they have this agreement with OpenAI. Amazon is that they're aligned with Anthropic. Right? Google are aligned with you have the DeepMind, right? So that's sort of like the way it's structured. But it's very interesting that Microsoft, essentially what they're saying is any model is welcome on the Azure platform. So including model from, perceived competitors like Anthropic. So Anthropic models, so the Claude Sonnet models, the Claude Opus model, the iCool models. So all of these are the latest versions of the Anthropic models, and they are all available today in Microsoft Foundry. So all of them are available. But you also see like some very interesting models here. So for example, you have the Grok model, which is from X or from formerly Twitter, available. You also see some other models like Kimi. Do you know about Kimi model? Have you heard about Kimi model before?
No.
Yeah, Kimi is a very interesting model. It's similar to DeepSeek. So it's from China. It's open source, right? So, but it's really, really good, right? It's open source, but it's really, really good. So a lot of organizations are going, I don't have to pay a lot of licensing costs to use this. If I want to use DeepSeek, if I want to use Kimi, they are open source. I can use them without paying a lot of the licensing fees. So what Microsoft has done is Microsoft has made those models available in the platform also. So you also have like the Sora model. So the latest version of the OpenAI models, for example, you can see GPT 5.2 that came out recently. It's already there. Sora, their video generation model, is also already available. So that's like one of the first announcements. We have new models that are available on the platform. And overall, we have about 11,268 models that are available. Do you know the reason why we have like that much of models? What do you think? Why do you think we have 11,000 models available?
I think it's just to provide a wide variety of options.
Yeah, but
So
do you
that
know
you're
like
just
where?
confused.
Yeah, but do you know where majority of those models come from? Of the 11,000
No.
models. For example, Anthropic only has how many models here? You have 1, 2, 3, 4. DeepSeek has how many models? The latest version of the DeepSeek models, DeepSeek, and maybe the other version 3.1. Kimi only has like a few. Even OpenAI only has a few. Grok only has a few. However, if you scroll down, you see here there's something called Hugging Face. And Hugging Face, you have about
10,000.
10,891
Wow.
models. What do you know
That's a
about
lot.
Hugging Face?
Yes.
Yeah. So how would you describe Hugging Face?
I think it's used to in creating AI agents, if I'm correct. I don't know. I haven't
So
gotten to.
yeah. So think about you know GitHub, right? GitHub.
Yes, yes.
So GitHub is a place that anyone can put their code.
Yeah.
It's the same for Hugging Face. Hugging Face is the
Oh.
GitHub for AI models. Anyone can put their model. So Kenny can take one of these open source models, maybe Kimi model or another open source model, Llama. You fine tune the model and you release it on Hugging Face. So essentially, anyone can go release their models on Hugging Face, sort of like a general marketplace, right? So what Microsoft has done is they've integrated with Hugging Face so that any model that's released by any member of the community is going to be available for us to use over here. So it's part of Hugging Face. So you see like lots of models, both from official providers and from just normal community members. Okay, so that's the one for the models. Let's go to the next one, which is around the tools. So instantly you see like a little bit of update here, Kenny. So is there any updates that you can see? Remember the previous experience of Microsoft Foundry? How many tools did we have there? If you remember, we only had a few
Not
tools.
a lot.
Not a
Yes.
lot. But if you have a look at this one, you see that we have about 1,458 tools now available. And the main reason for that is because of this, is because they've introduced a catalog of MCP tools. Remember we talked about MCP previously?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so Kenny, this way I'll put you on the spot. We ask each other questions back and forth. If you don't have questions for me, I have questions for you. So, what is MCP? If you help our audience to understand what is MCP again.
That's Model Context Protocol, which is a
Yeah.
standard protocol for connecting models with external tools.
Excellent, excellent. That's a perfect definition. So it's a standard protocol for connecting models to external tools. But then we have like a lot of like MCP registries that are now available. So what Microsoft has done is they've just integrated with a lot of the MCP tools that are available. So for example, you want to connect your model to a Cosmos DB database. You want to connect your model to, multiple tools. You have TomTom here for like GPS data. You have Sophos here for some security intelligence data. You've got Morningstar here, I guess, for some investment type data. You've got Hugging Face here. So even Hugging Face have an MCP. So if you want to integrate your AI agents with Hugging Face, you can do that via MCP. You have GitHub. So you have in total about 1,458 tools that are now available. And the tool falls into different categories. So you have ones that are provided by Microsoft themselves. So you have Microsoft MCP tools. You have some that are provided by Microsoft partners. So here you have about 30 of those. And then you have those that are really just community provided. So those will fall under custom. So here you can see like a lot of tools that are available here that just falls under custom. So now we have a lot more tools that we can play with. The other thing that they also did was they have like this solution template. So solution template is a way for us to get started. So maybe sometimes you want to do a demo, and what you want to do is you just want to set up a quick project to demonstrate something. So Microsoft has like some built-in solution templates. So for example, you want to quickly deploy a call center voice agent and want to use that maybe to demonstrate something. You can just go here, open that in GitHub, and you can deploy this into your environment and play around with it. So they have like this pre-built solution templates that we can use. Does that make sense, Kenny? Any questions?
Yes, guys.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're using like the solution templates, they're very, very easy to use. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what they call GitHub code spaces. So if I go, for example, let's click on this template, it takes me to this template. If I click on this, it takes me to GitHub. But when I get to GitHub, it takes me to the GitHub repository for that template. I can see what the architecture looks like. So let's open the image. So this is the architecture. I can see that it's going to have a front end that's going to be running on Azure Container Hub. And then it's going to be using Microsoft Foundry Agent Service in the backend with the vector store. And it's going to be using AI search for vector database. And it's going to be sending all the trace information, observability information into application insights. So that's what the project looks like. What if I want to deploy this project? I can either clone this project locally and deploy it from my PC, or what I can do is I can go to open it in GitHub Codespaces. So GitHub Codespaces is a development environment in the cloud. So if I click on that, it's going to open a GitHub Codespace environment for me. It says, how many CPU cores do I want? Which region do I want the code space to be created in? I click on Create Code Space. It's going to create this code space environment for me. And then what I can then do is I can go deploy this project into my Azure environment from here. So that's how it works. Essentially, GitHub Codespace is a development environment in the cloud, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You see that it looks like Visual Studio Code, right? It's like Visual Studio Code in the cloud. Yeah. So instead of you downloading and installing Visual Studio Code, I'm just using this from a web browser. I can log into my Azure environment. I can do AZ login, and it will log me into my Azure environment, and then I can just deploy this project. And I'll actually, let me show you a demo of this one very quickly. So AZ login, it's going to ask me to log into my Azure environment. And at the moment, it's currently doing some activating some extensions. And once it's done, I can log into my Azure environment, and then I'll show you. It's taking a while, so maybe I come back to this one so it doesn't take a lot of time. So, but anyway, that's GitHub Codespace. That's how we can do our solution templates. Okay, I'll come back to this while it's doing that. Okay, so that's on the discover side. So we can discover the new models that are available. We can discover the new tools that are available. We can discover the solution templates that are available. So now let's go to the next place, which is now that we know what's available, now we want to start building things with that. And that is where we go on the build. So in the build section, we have services and capabilities that we can use to create agents. And that's the very first thing that we see here. We have the agent service that we can go to use to create our agent. And you see that this experience is a little bit different. So let's call this, let's say, agent 01. Okay, it has to be unique. Let's say David agent 01. And let's create that. So you see that the experience is not that much different from what we had before. So here we can specify the model that the agent is going to use. We can give the agent an instruction. You are an AI agent that answers questions about Azure. You have access to use the Azure MCP tool, or just give it whatever instruction that you want. And then here under tools, this is again where you see like some of the new changes, because here you see that there's a whole lot of tools that we have. If I go to the catalog, we have a lot of tools there. So for example, let me just type for storage. Let's see, is there anything in storage? Okay, we have Azure Blob Storage here. So let's do that. So look at that. It's got like a custom MCP one here. So let's go to connect Azure Blob Storage here. So it says create. Oh, in this case, it's going to use Logic App to do that. So create a Logic App resource to do that. So they've streamlined the process. In the past, where I need to go, manually set up Logic App outside of this, it can set up like a Logic App connector directly for me to connect to additional tools. So that's one of the things, changes that they've done. So that's creating a Logic App resource in the background for me. And then one other thing, while this one is creating, one other thing that you notice that wasn't there before, Kenny, is memory. In the past, we can add
Yes.
rules, we can add knowledge, we can specify guardrails, but no memory. But now they've added the option where we can specify memory, so that way the agent can remember previous conversations and can maintain a state of previous conversations. And I'll show what that looks like in a minute once the Logic App has created and this has created the connection that I'm looking for. So let's go. Let's go back here. So it is taking a while, but in the background, let me show you what it's doing. Okay, leave, that's fine. So you can see what it's done is it's taking me here to go register an MCP server with Logic Apps. So once I've done that, so it's a more streamlined experience. So maybe what I want to do is I want to, let's see, use which of these actions do I want to use? Maybe create blob, delete blob, list blob, get blob metadata, update blob. So I can specify which of the actions that I want to use from this MCP. Go to next. Specify how I want to do the connection. Do I want to use a managed identity? Do I want to use access key? You know the difference, Kenny, between managed identity and access key?
No.
Let me help to explain that very, very quickly. So I'll bring up a whiteboard here and I'll explain this. So whenever you see the term managed identity in Azure, what that is referring to is this. So let's go to start this. So what that's referring to is I have a resource in Azure, like a Logic App resource. This Logic App needs to access Azure Blob Storage. I can either use the access key of this blob storage, and what that means is I will need to specify the access key in my Logic App and say, if you want to connect to this blob storage, use this access key to connect to the blob storage. The risk is this access key is exposed because somebody can get access to that access key, they can steal it, and then use it to access the blob storage. So that's the risk of using an access key. But if I'm not using an access key, the other option that I have is I can use a managed identity. And a managed identity means the Logic App itself will have its own identity. And if the Logic App needs to access the blob storage, it will use its own identity to access the blob storage. So I don't need to expose any access key that can be stolen, is the key thing. So if I'm using access key, I will expose it, which means it potentially could be stolen. If I'm using managed identity, it means the resource is using its own built-in identity, which means I don't need to expose any keys. Right? I know that may not be fully clear, but hopefully that just helps you to understand the key difference between the two of them. Right? So one is more secure than the other. It's considered to be more secure than the other, is the key thing. So from a security perspective, it's more secure to use managed identity. But in this case, I'll just keep things simple. I'll use access key. Says what's the storage account name or the blob endpoint that I want to connect to, and what's the access key that I want to use. So what I'll do is I'll go very quickly to my Azure storage. I have some storage accounts here that I'm going to be using. So let's go pick up a storage account. Let's do this. Okay. I think I'm going to be using, let's see. Yeah, let's use this one. I found the storage account, and I'll use the endpoint here. So I'll define the endpoint or the blob endpoint. So storage account name would be this storage account. And the access key, I'll copy the access key for the storage account very quickly. I'll copy that and I'll paste this here and I'll say create new. Let me just go back to see what I've specified. Create blob. Get blob content would be another one, okay, that I want to use. Oh, to say there's some form of background noise. Apologies. That's this true. It's probably like the generator that's coming from your end. Is it? Can it? Is there like a generating set or something?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
apologies to the audience, but it's one of the realities that one of the realities that that happens. What can we do? So I'll just put this one here. I'll go ahead and click on create new. And that should create my connection. And if I save that, MCV server name, my Azure store, or let's do this. Apologies. Connects to my Azure storage account, and it's got connection to my Azure storage account here, and these are the different actions that it can use. So let's go ahead and register that. So you can see that what they've done is they've streamlined the process, right? They've streamlined the process for us being able to use some of this tooling, right? Is the key thing that's happened here. So, and there you go. So now I've got the tool already configured, and I can go now use that in my AI agent. So now I've got my Azure store. If I go back to my AI agent and I specify my agent again, and if I go on the tools, add a new tool, I can go to my agent, sorry, the one that I configured here, my Azure store, add tool, and now I can use that. So now you can see, I think you talked about this earlier, Kemi, when we're looking at the previous version of Microsoft Foundry. We're like, oh, I've got to go to like Logic App to go configure this, then come back here to do all of that stuff. So what they've tried to do is try to streamline that to where from within Foundry, you can say, I want to use a tool that's managed by Logic App, and it'll walk you through the process of creating that. So more simplified. Knowledge also, so they've added more knowledge. So there's this new thing they introduced called Foundry IQ. Microsoft likes changing names. So they have Foundry IQ. But Foundry IQ is the same as what you used before, which is essentially Azure AI Search. But the new fancy name is Foundry IQ because it integrates more data sources. So that just know that it's essentially a similar thing. So you can add like that.
I think I came across something.
Yes, please.
Yeah, like on this Foundry IQ now, I think it's called the model router. Yeah, can you just shed more light on that?
Yes. So model router is a very interesting one because it's if I go back to Discover here, it's a very difficult thing. Well, it's not. I won't say it's a very difficult thing, but it's a complex thing to decide which model should you use. So, for example, here, Kenny, you have 11,268 models. I'm not sure. Has this ever happened to you, Kenny? Like you're hungry, and maybe you want to order food, and then you happen to be in a place where there's a lot of options, and you're like, hey, which one should I go for? I'm thinking I'd probably go for this one. I can get this one. I can mix it with this one. I can mix it with the other one. But if I also use this one, it'll also be nice. And then if I have this drink also with this one, it will also be good. Because you have so many options, it's very difficult for you to choose, right? So which is actually a lot of choice can
Yeah.
also be like an issue. So in this case, you have 11,000 options. How do you know which of these 11,000, which one is best for your agent use case? How do you know? So that's where model router or model router comes in. Because what model router is meant to do is it takes that decision away from us. It says, I would decide which model is the right one to use based on the task that you want to do. So model router has support for multiple models behind the scene, but those will stay behind the scene. So we have access to a reasoning model. It has access to like DeepSeek models, OpenAI models, and some other models. So, but then you send your request to it, and it would decide based on the type of request that you're sending, which model to use to fulfill that request. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so that's like the power of that. So if I go here, so that's it right there. So the model router. So the same way that you're deploying models, you can go deploy a model router. But instead of deploying the model, you deploy a model router. But then the model router, you can see the models that it has behind the scene. It supports Grok, DeepSeek, and GPT open source, Llama, Instruct, which is from Quen, GPT models, the cloud model. So it has all of these that it supports behind the scene. And it will decide which one to use depending on the kind of task that you want to complete. So that's the power of that one. Okay, so that is this one. So let's go further. So you have, we can do memory. So we can either create a memory outside and then specify it, or we can just say automatically create a memory to store the state of the information. And then we can specify our guardrails. So guardrails has not really changed. So we can specify guardrails for scanning the inputs and outputs from our agent. So anyways, that is how this one works. So, but here is a new thing, Kenny, that is also new. Now, in the past, remember that in the past, how do you usually do? Because last week, Kenny, you showed us last time, sorry, you showed us a multi-agent workflow, right? Or a multi-agent design.
System.
So that has now changed. That is now changed in the new version of Microsoft Foundry. You notice that here, I don't have the option to go add another agent. Like, in the past, you went to, add a tool, and then you can go to, let me go to add a new tool.
Yeah,
And
then
under
do all
the
of that
tool,
individually.
yeah, exactly. There's no place where I can go say, I want to add like an agent. Where's the agent that I want to add? There's no place that I can go say I want to add another agent. However, if we want to do a multi-agent workflow now, we do that under workflows here. Now, workflows, you'll be glad to know, Kenny, has a look and feel to it that's similar to anything. So that way I can go, yeah, exactly. So now, for example, if I have a look at this, I can go say a blank workflow, sequential, human in the loop, group chat. Let's just go with blank workflow for now. So if I say blank workflow, you can see that I say start, right? And then from this one, I can then start going, oh, what do I want to do next? Or I want to invoke agent one. So invoke agent. What agent do I want to invoke? I want to invoke this agent. And then I specify instruction, input, and all the other stuff, and specify that. Okay, what's that going to do? That's going to feed into another agent that I want to invoke. Or maybe I want to do some conditional check. If the output of this agent, if it is equals to this one, if this is true, then I want to go invoke agent one. Else, if it is not true, I want to invoke another agent too. Does that make sense? So that's where we can design it in a visual flow, a multi-agent design. So like in the case of the example that you were showing earlier or in the past, you can say, oh, okay, I've got like an agent that would do sort of like the orchestration. And then that agent, if let's say the condition is I want to, analyze the data, then if that is true, then call the agent to analyze data. If it's I want to modify the data, if else, then call the agent to modify the data. So this is how we do a multi-agent workflow now. Is we do that under workflows, which provides a more robust experience than statically doing it under the agent section like we used to do in the past. So what do you think about this, Kenny? I'll say, what do you think? Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to ask a question.
Yes, please.
So, how does this Foundry IQ now, like if there are conflicting answers across um, different or multiple data sources, like how does it detect this?
Oh, conflicting answers. So if you give me like an example of what you're referring to, of like where a conflicting answer would come into play.
Maybe when maybe data is maybe stale or missing, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that one, that's really up to us in terms of the data that we make available to the agent. So whatever data that we make available to the agent is what the agent will use. If we make available data that's stale, it's really up to us to to make sure that we have the right data available to the agent. Or potentially what we could do is we could clean things up, or maybe we could tie in certain instructions to maybe provide some guardrails around that. So maybe I could have an instruction to say, if the data that you're retrieving, if it's older than this date, then don't use it, or something like that. So maybe I can put that in an instruction, but ultimately we want to clean up our data sources that we are feeding into our agent to make sure that we have up-to-date accurate data. So that is our responsibility on the side of the people designing. As people designing the agents, that's our responsibility to make sure we do that. Okay. So anyway, so I think that's probably where we like stop today. So just going through like some of these ones. And there's some other additional improvement that Microsoft has done with this one. So again, we're talking about discover, build, operate, deploy. So discover, we've seen that we can discover models, we can discover the new tools that are available, and we can discover the solution templates. On the build, we can see that we can create our agents, and our agents, we have a more streamlined workflow to use tools like Logic Apps powered tools. We also see that we have workflows, which is a more robust way to create multi-agent workflows. So using workflows here. And later we'll talk about like some of these other ones later, how we evaluate that. So these are all part of building the agent. And then after building the agent, I think in the next session, which I think maybe next year, we'll get into operate. How do we operate the agent? How do we deploy the agent? So we get into like some of those. What are some of the new announcements that Microsoft has done? Okay, nice. So that's it for today. Any questions at all that jumps out to you, Kenny? What do you think about the new Foundry so far?
I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Looking forward to exploring it.
Yeah, it is a very interesting one. It's a very robust one, and yeah, I think especially like the workflow. Workflow, I think, is a very interesting one to keep an eye on. It's like anything is influencing everyone, so everyone wants an anything look and feel. So now Microsoft has caught the bug, so now they have an anything look and feel also. So this looks a little bit like anything in terms of how this works. And what I'll probably do is after we've gone through like this.
One quick question. Yes. Yeah.
No, for sure.
It came to mind. With anything, you have to connect to external tools. So this tool is possible within this Microsoft agent. Or within the workflows rather.
Good point. So because anything, we're actually specifying the tools directly here, right? Because that's what we're doing with anything. With anything, what we're doing is I can go pick like, SQL Server or something and then add it directly here. So that's a very, very good point and very, very good observation, Kenny. So the way that happens is in Microsoft Foundry, that capability to connect tools stays in the agent service. So workflow is only for orchestrating multiple agents, if that makes sense. So, and if I go back, I'll show that to you. So like you connect your agent to tools, and then you orchestrate your agent using workflows. So let me go say save. No, let me show you like an example here. So if I click here, if I go to, let's say, sequential type workflow, in this case, you can see a type of workflow here. So we start the workflow, we invoke agent one, we invoke agent two. After that, we invoke agent three. So this is a simple workflow. We're not connecting tools. So the tools themselves are made available to each agent when we describe the agent here under agent service. So, but here we are only just orchestrating how the agents will relate to each other is what we are doing here. So, but if you remember, like in the past, the experience that we had, we could not do something like, if this condition is this one, this is the agent to call, otherwise this one. If we wanted to do something like that, we have to put it in the instruction. And then say in the instruction and to our primary agent, and then say, oh, this is how you decide which agent you're going to call if you have access to multiple agents. But in this case, we can actually define that in this case and say, so this is a sequential workflow. Here's another workflow, which is like a human in the loop. So you can see with this one, it starts, we set a variable, a user can ask a question. If depending on the type of question that the user asks, then we can do certain things like maybe send a message that can invoke like an agent to take an action or something like that. So those are like examples of some of the multi-agent flows that we can do here. Here's another one of group chat. So in this case, it starts, we invoke an agent, which invokes another agent. After it finishes, it sets a variable. If the then we check for certain condition in the output. If certain conditions is triggered, we end the process. Else, if certain condition is triggered, we invoke maybe an agent. Else, if another condition is met, then we go back in the loop and we go to, back to the space and just go back in that loop. So essentially, we can design, how our agents are going to interrelate with each other. Okay, so that will be where we stop for today. So thanks very much for joining us. So, by the way, apologies, Kenny. I thought I was sharing my screen. You're probably looking at what was I showing you? What was I showing there?
Yes.
Sorry, this is what I was showing. Sorry. I was showing something like this.
Okay.
So yeah, you can see like, you start and then you set a variable and then you invoke an agent. And then after that, you invoke another agent. And in this case,
it's like a conditional statement, just giving conditions to the agent.
Exactly. So essentially a much more well-defined way of orchestrating multiple agents. Right? Because if you think about it, like what organizations will have is they have multiple agents that specialize in different things. Right. So maybe it's like a university. Maybe you have an agent that can create a student record. You have an agent that can update a student record. You have an agent that can maybe modify student attendance. You have all these different agents. And then how do you orchestrate them will be the question, right? So in that case, you can orchestrate it and say, okay, if a request comes in, if the request is about, if the request comes in, send the request to maybe like a primary agent. That agent's job is maybe to decide whether it's maybe it's going to be updating a record, creating a new record or whatever. So based off of that, we're going to maybe check for certain conditions. If the student's department is this one, go trigger an agent that can update record for students in that department. Else, if the department is this one, go trigger an agent that does this one. Else, if it is this one, go trigger that. So this is just an example. This is not the only thing that we can do. This is just an example. There are other types of workflows. Essentially, we can design any type of process that we want to design. Ultimately, what they're looking to do is this. The way to think about agents is this, Kenny. Think about agents are the new productive colleagues that we have. So I know it can be tough to think about this thing that doesn't have life as a colleague, but that's what they are. So, and in the same way that we set up human processes, that's the same way that organizations will be setting up agent processes. So, for example, like you go work in a team. The team will have a way that they structure their process. Maybe they will say, okay, Kenny is our data analyst engineer. Kenny will handle this. If it is this task and this task, send it to Kenny. Oh, maybe we'll have somebody else outside Kenny that handles something else. And if it is this one, send it to Kenny. So there are different ways that you can do that. Or maybe the way it is a sequential. So somebody handles something and then hands over to Kenny to do your own part, and then you finish like the way they're doing like some of like this secretariat job, like government job, right? So a file goes through desk number 1, then that goes to desk number 2, and that goes to desk number 3. So that's the same way we're going to be building agents and orchestrating them like humans. So we can design a sequential workflow. Agent 1 will handle this one, and then after that, you pass it to agent 2, and then after that, you pass it to agent 3. So that's one type of workflow. Another workflow may be, we're going to work as a team. We'll have a manager that will delegate tasks to us. So in that case, you have like a manager agent that will be the one to say, agent 1, you go do this one. Agent 2, you go do this one and come back to me. Agent 3, you go do this one and come back to me, and then we'll decide what to do after that. And we'll be the one to decide. I'm the manager. I will decide what to do after that. So in that case, you can structure a workflow where you have a manager agent that hands over tasks, collects all of that. So essentially, we'll be using human resources knowledge when we are orchestrating agents, because we'll be treating them as productive forces. So that's the way that it's going to be. So we're going to be leading a lot of human resources knowledge to orchestrate them very well, to make sure that they are fulfilling the purposes that they're meant to be doing for the organization that we're in. Okay, thanks very much everyone for joining. Appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll pick it up from there. I think that we'll probably skip the last one. I don't want to be dragging Kenny into doing Azure on the night of the 31st. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we can enjoy and rest, get ready for next year. So this will be the last meetup for this year. Thanks very much for being with us all through this year. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, so Kenny, any final thing that you want to say before we close for today?
See you guys next year. But when next year? We haven't even decided on that yet, but
yeah, we've not decided on that yet. Yeah, so just watch the meetup group. We'll find like a good time that works next year, and then we'll pick up from there. Yeah. So we may have like some time to rest. I think we need some rest, and then so that way also Kenny can also come up with some new content of the new Microsoft Foundry, and then we'll decide what to do. But sometime next year we'll start again.